Or as the council leader would say, and I'm a member of Brentwood Council as well, for the watching millions, but I'm not sure it's quite that many. But it is good to have a permanent record. So, in terms of facilities, if you need the facilities, it's out right and then through the doors and right again. And if there is an emergency, we obviously have some people here who can help deal with that. But it's straight down the main stairs, out and gather please by the flagpole. We'll check there that everyone's okay and safe. So let's introduce ourselves. Should I start with you, Paul?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Brace. I'm Director of Communities and Health for Brentwood Borough Council and have responsibility for community safety.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Eaglestone, Group Commander for Essex County Fire Rescue Service, South West area.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Terry Fisher, District Commander for Brentwood for Essex Police.
Thank you very much. Just a few words of intro from me. You are probably aware that we've invested quite heavily in Essex Police and indeed in the County Fire and Rescue Service over the last few years. So particularly with the fire and rescue, bolstering our expertise in fire protection. That's making sure buildings are safe. And that in many ways is following up from the very sad, tragic disaster in Brentwood. There have been two reports now written following on from the Brentwood disaster. Both of them coming with a number of recommendations, and we've certainly been making sure that we've implemented those recommendations here in Essex to make sure that we are keeping buildings safer. You may have read in the news about the fact that we have actually prohibited a couple of high-rises in the county since then. So we are taking a much firmer line of enforcement than we were ever able to before, and that has involved some investment in the County Fire and Rescue Service. In the police service, the investment really has been in bolstering our resources across the piece, but particularly in terms of local and visible policing. So pretty much doubled the size of our community policing teams over the last 6 years. Overall, the expansion has been 905 extra police headcount beyond what we had, so that's gone up from 2,850 to 3,755. Of course, that's not a perfect figure. Sometimes it's a bit over that, sometimes it's a bit under that, depending on how the recruitment goes and how the retirement goes. But that is our headcount budget for the current year, and it was for last year as well. I'm pleased to say, and again, you may have read in the press, there was quite some tension about how we were going to be able to sustain Essex Police at its current strength, its current record strength, as we got the announcement of police funding for this year. The government very kindly allocated us £14.5 million of additional money from central government grant, but did land us with the cost of the national insurance contributions increase, and very kindly gave police officers a 4.75% pay increase, which was nicely ahead of inflation, but of course we had to fund that as well. So £14.5 million of extra funding, £21 million of extra costs. That didn't add up, and we had to have a bit of a session with the government through to January, and including dealing with them through the media. I'm really pleased to say they did actually find some extra money for us, an extra £2.5 million for us, an extra £100 million for policing across the country. It did mean, however, that I had to raise the council tax to the maximum, so that was for the average property in Essex about £14, which is a 5.7% increase in the precept. Obviously that is also well ahead of inflation and indeed ahead of the police pay settlement. However, we seem to have had very solid support from the public again for having done that, because I think the desire is really to see police sustained at the sort of strength that we are at the moment, where Essex Police is actually able to reduce crime. And so I'm really pleased now that over the last year we have seen crime come down by over 8%. We have seen crime overall from the peak come down by about 15%. And some areas of crime, the higher harm crimes where we have focused first, down by much more than that. So homicide halved, burglary halved, and here in Brentwood actually burglary down by about 28% in the last year, which is a good success. And antisocial behaviour across the piece down by about 3/4 from where it peaked. So those are quite big figures, but that doesn't mean to say we are where we want to be, because above all, I think the real strain on our communities here in Essex is, as is common across much of the country, it is violence against women and girls. We are still seeing far too much sexual assault, far too much rape, and far too much domestic abuse. And domestic abuse is predominantly man or woman. I can probably say that again now, can't I? After the Supreme Court ruling of last week. My terminology is no longer quite as confused as it has been for the last few months. But to be straightforward, that is how it works, sadly. And we have invested quite heavily in better techniques there as well. Around domestic abuse, we have trialled some things in Essex in partnership with Edinburgh and Somerset and some of the academic institutions, Bristol and Nottingham Training University, and have some success in finding new ways of stopping domestic abuse, particularly perpetrator programs, where we're giving people who haven't yet committed an offence, which would mean that they needed to be locked up, but giving them cognitive behavioural therapy programs, which I find it quite amazing. I mean, the programs that we have, the change program, etc., they're basically about explaining to people that if they beat up their partner probably isn't very happy, and it gets through to them. That's the thing that astonishes me, that it actually works. It's reduced. When we did the trials, it actually reduced domestic abuse by 85%. It hasn't been that successful across the entire piece because, sadly, some relationships, some people are too set in their ways. But it has so far reduced domestic abuse across the county by about 16%. And that is very much against the national trend, where it is still pretty much at its peak. And similarly, we've had a lot of success in the county dealing with drug and knife crime. That is one of this government's clear priorities. I very much welcome the fact that they've set their priorities in terms of policing law and order around increasing neighbourhood policing and halving drug and knife crime and halving violence against women and girls. There's a bang in line with our own priorities here in Essex in the Policing Crime Plan. And we have been sharing our experience around drug and knife crime in the county. Real success in terms of busting county lines, which are the modern mobile network-based drug gangs that we've had operating in the county, but also a lot of success in working with young people to divert them, to help them understand how not to get involved in drug gangs in the first place, working with schools, working with parents. You may have seen the knife angel, a very large statue made out of confiscated knives, which has been in Harlow, it's been in Southend, it's been in Colchester, and it has a big impact, but its real impact is on catching the attention of parents and having them come forward and say, what can we do? How do we understand this problem better? How can we stop our kids getting involved? And that means that overall, the incidence of knife crime in the county is about 18% below where it was at the peak. The actual incidence of knife harm is down by over a quarter. So that's admissions to hospital. And the thing that really surprises me positively most is the fact that the incidence of knife homicide, drug-related knife homicide, is down by 70%. So that is a real success for policing and partners in this county. And I'd just like to say thank you for that. That again is very different from the national trend. Just over the M25 in London, knife crime is at its peak. It has not yet come down. So we are doing some things with your support through taxation, with your support as partners, and it is the public who are our partners. We are doing some things which are working very well. There are things where we do have a lot more to do, as I said. I think probably most striking of those, beyond rape and serious sexual assault, is road safety, where we had a success over the last 10 years of reducing the number of people being killed and seriously injured. But since COVID, that is not the case. It is going back up again. And frankly, we've had a really dreadful start to this year. The winter months of 2025 we have already seen 23 people killed on the roads of Essex. That dwarfs the number of people we've had killed through any other form of crime. And it is largely crime. It is speeding, it is drug driving, it is drink driving, it is not wearing your seatbelt as well, which has resulted in certainly one of those deaths. We have more to do there, and we had a meeting of the Safer Essex Road Partnership this morning to discuss effectively, not quite emergency measures, but super urgent measures that we need to put in place to change that, because it is disrupting, it is wrecking the lives of so many families across the county. That probably is what I wanted to say as a preamble. I don't know if our colleagues actually want to add anything to that, or shall we go straight to questions, please? Questions, please.
Do we have any questions? There we go. There you go. Now I'll just give you a quick one about the microphones. If you hold it there, then it works fine. If you hold it down there, then no one can hear. So do please hold it up there.
And you can identify yourselves if you like, but you don't have to.
Good evening. Lynn Collins, I live in Hockend. First of all, congratulations to you, Mr. Hurst, for the difference that you've made in your tenure so far. Because, certainly I've seen it, and I read about these sorts of things. So first I want to say that. My first question, because I have actually got a couple built in, you pretty much answered, and it was all around sort of do we do enough in the schools locally? Have we been lucky that we haven't had the knife crime, or is it something that the schools are doing proactively, or that you're doing proactively with the schools? Do you think that we've got away with it? Because I certainly haven't heard of any, fatalities. Maybe, well, I would only get it from social media, but I guess I would have heard about it if that had been the case. So that was sort of my interest, because again, with crime, a lot of it is preventative requirements, not post the crime.
Do you want to? Thanks.
Thank you, first and foremost, and to everyone here actually, before we get going, just thank you for making the effort. Whether you come in here on the pretenses to hold us to account, to ask some challenging questions, or to pass on praise, whatever it might be, none of this works without your support and also holding us to account. So thank you for being here. Look, to respond to your question, some reassurance. First and foremost, yes, you are right. Social media is wonderful, it can also be a damaging aspect, but no significant nor major issues or fatalities, as you say that, in any other schools in Brentwood. So we have what's called children and young person officers, that are officers that specialise in dealing with youth crime, but that also involves a lot of preventative work, and they work alongside social care, the youth offending services, etc. When a child is, and let's be really blunt here, we're not always looking to criminalise children, we're looking to re-educate. There could be mechanisms that need to be put in place to support family members, foster carers, whatever it might be, to divert that individual away from a life of crime. Really, that's the mission for us. When we go into schools, we work alongside our partners in the fire service, and we deliver educational pieces around not only just knife crime, but we talk about domestic abuse, drugs, coercive and controlling behaviour, and child criminal exploitation, as well as child sexual exploitation. I say both of those because that links into what we see with, less predominantly in Brentwood, but in areas with gangs, using children to obviously exploit them in ways to fund illicit activities. So there is many mechanisms that we do. We have very much engagement with youth, but could we do more? Absolutely. It's definitely a mission of mine, and I've been here now in Brentwood for 6 months. I feel that we could be doing more around youth engagement. I'd like to be doing more in schools, and we will be. We run programmes in other districts that I think would be really beneficial around the educational piece to our youth. One, to engage better and understand their concerns, breaking down those barriers, particularly with social media in the day that you see with at the moment. As much as we're doing, and we're going to tell you about all the wonderful things we're doing, there is still concerns amongst the public around policing. There is still challenges in policing, and breaking down that youth demographic and those barriers there is really important to my team, which is why we'll continue to do that. So a bit of a dedication there. We will continue to do what we're doing and look to amplify really what we're doing inside of schools in Brentwood.
Any further questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got Councillor David Kendall. I've got 5 questions, so I'll space them. I won't do it all at once because I'll give someone else a chance. But my first one is, I represent Brentwood Westward, which used to have the police station in the ward. And a number of residents were very disappointed to lose the police station. I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why, but they were disappointed. My understanding was that Essex Police got about £8 million from the sale of the police station and about £650,000 from the sale of the Kelvin Hatch police house as well. Both were developed to this flat standard now when you go down. So my first question is, how much of that money has actually gone into frontline policing in Brentwood? Because that's an awful lot of money, and I'm sure residents would like to see that ring-fenced. That's the first point. The second point is we've got the police based in the town hall below, but actually getting to speak to a policeman or policewoman is quite difficult because there's no front desk. So unless you bump into one on the high street or wave at one through a car window, actually engaging face-to-face with the police is quite tricky. So is there anything that can be done on that particular point? So I've got some other questions, but those are two to start with.
Yeah, that's a fair division of labour. Yeah, the money question's mine. David, we've discussed this before. £8.5 million is, yes, roughly the amount of money that was produced. We have invested heavily in these sorts of things. So we've sold unutilised land and buildings across the county. We've raised about £40 million in total, and we've spent it largely on technology and improving police's capability to be out on patrol, be with the public more, be able to do more without going back to a police station, so they can actually spend more time either preventing crime, keeping people safe, or catching criminals. And in terms of, have we taken money away from Brentwood? No, we haven't. We're spending more in Brentwood than we ever have. Ballpark is about £40 million a year that we spend on policing. Hopefully that answers your question there. And Chief Inspector.
Certainly. Thank you for the question. And look, it's a fair challenge. I worked in Brentwood many years ago as a sergeant, know the station well, and I understand the benefits of that face-to-face engagement, of being able to walk into, as it would be, if you go back 20 years, when I first signed up, you could walk into your local police station to discuss issues. And for a proportion of the community, because that's what was done, that's what was felt is the best way of communicating. The reality is for some that is the preference, but there's also a significant demographic, particularly youth demographic, where face-to-face isn't how we engage. So we kind of need to innovate and really get with what society expects of us. In an ideal world, if we could have all the police stations open, we would. But simply put, we need to have enough police to be able to focus on, have the right funding in the right places, and certainly from conversations that have been going through government over the last 6 to 12 months, I think everyone in this room can recognise that we understand we need to make sure we're doing our absolute best. Essex Police are the lowest funded forces in the UK, yet we continue to perform exceptionally well. 77% of people in Essex believe that we're doing a good or excellent job, and there's a reason for that. It's the hard-working men and women that go out every day, engage with the public and respond to emergencies. So I digress to say that as much as I would like that, we try to counter that by, you've mentioned the mobile phones. Officers are contactable on their phones whilst on duty. You wouldn't have that for the front office, but with the new neighbourhood policing team model, you will know who your local beat officer is. Contact details will be listed on there for your neighbourhood policing team, so you need to contact them around any neighbourhood concerns. We've got our online facilities, live chat facilities, and we're currently still looking to innovate further. In the next 5 to 10 years, no doubt we'll be exploring what we can do with AI as an example. I'm sure police forces are already looking at how we can maybe innovate more with our communication strategies. Obviously, the 101 and 999 call systems are there, but when we're talking about engagement and really giving everyone a voice in the community, that's why we have our community safety and engagement officers and the neighbourhood policing teams that we do want to be more visible. We have engagement events set up almost on a bi-weekly basis where we publicise these locally, Facebook, X, local billboards. We're looking to go into parish magazines as well. I encourage you all, please, to sign up to our dispatch email that comes out, and again, we put all of the dates where my officers will go to a location in all wards to discuss your concerns and issues. Of course, if we've got a rising concern, let's just say speculatively an increase in burglary in Hutton, you would likely see an inspector or a sergeant turn up to the local neighbourhood watch briefing or the councillor group, whatever it might be, to discuss those problems, to explain what we're doing to combat the issue and to reassure. So we're being innovative, but there are many new mechanisms that didn't exist back in 2005 or in the 90s that are not available to the public now, and there are some that obviously have preference over that.
Great. We have further questions, so I'll take this later.
Come back.
We'll come back to you, sort of perhaps alternate with you, David, since you've got 5.
My name is Maisie. I live in Brentwood. I'm at University of Southampton as well. But I just wanted to ask, how are these meetings advertised to young people? Like, how well are they? Because I think that's a very vital perspective of like people being able to come here and ask questions and engage directly with you. So I wondered how you kind of advertise these meetings, because I think they're quite useful. I had never found out about these until I spoke to David like a couple of days ago. So I think that I know many young people who live in Brentwood full time who would like love to utilise these and ask you questions. Yeah.
Yes.
That sort of a similar question that I was thinking really true, because I was aware of it through Councillor Reid, who told me about it this evening. And I'm just sort of curious why, for example, I mean, you must be disappointed with the turnout, and I know these sorts of things take a lot of time and effort and everything to get organised, so that to one side, that must be disappointing. But, you know, I certainly didn't see it on the Facebook, social media, Facebook site for the local groups that I monitor, let's say. And I still think that you're missing a trick really, and perhaps also if you were to invite the village councillors directly, you might get some sort of feedback directly from the village councillors as well. So, sorry, I've butted in it.
No,
Yeah, it's the same theme, and hopefully you.
Yeah, that was the same point.
So I'll give a bit of an answer, but Glenn's the guy who actually does the advertising. So I'll tell you what I think I understand. You can tell me whether I actually understood it correctly or not. So we do a lot. We do what we can. So we do it on X. We do it on Facebook. We do it via the Association of Local Councils. Word of mouth. I send something around local councillors as well myself, and hopefully that has an impact. The reality is sometimes we get 250 people come. We advertised the one we did last year the same as we did the one we did this year. Okay, the venue wasn't the same, perhaps Hutton Banqueting Suite is easier to get to, I don't know, very near Shenfield Station. But that was 60 or 70 people. It does seem to vary, and sometimes there seems to be an issue which catches people, and therefore they share it with people and say, I'm going, are you going to come? I think last time it was the spate of burglaries that we had, which is what a lot of the conversation was about, and car theft in this time last year. That hasn't happened this time. As you say, disappointing. It would be good to have a larger group here, but we can certainly take on board your suggestions, and perhaps you just need to identify via the youth services group whether are there some people there who we can. There's a link there to the council, isn't there, with young people from schools. Perhaps we can actually link up that way as well and try and reach out to more people. But I'm going to ask Glenn to tell you what I've missed.
Yes, I'm Glenn, I'm the Communications Manager with the BFCC. So this was posted on X, Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram, and it was posted several times because we scheduled them using Hootsuite, and I was making sure that it was posted several times over the Easter break, and also beforehand. We contacted the local press, we contacted the Brentwood Gazette, and I was assured by the editor of the Brentwood Gazette, obviously edits a lot of papers in the area now, that it was in the Brentwood Gazette, because I have had many contacts with him over the years. It was also sent to Essex Live as well. Unfortunately, sometimes these things just aren't seen to be of interest to Essex Live. I also have a contact at BBC Essex, and I just asked them to mention it whenever possible. We also feature it in the PFCC newsletter, which goes out every week, and if you wish to sign up to that newsletter, please do just go to the PFCC website, and you'll find out everything that we're up to every week. And it was also on the PFCC website as well. So we try to get a pretty good spread of everything that goes across there. That's where we can go there. I think that's fairly exhaustive, really.
I suppose the only thing I'd probably ask is a counter question, really. Maisie.
Yes.
Maisie. It's first and foremost, again, I've been to a few of these, and it's rare that we get youth demographic here, so thank you for taking time coming along. And I suppose to ask you, I mean, you say you're at university.
Yeah.
I know that, you know, below 20, we're not on Facebook, not on X.
No.
And Instagram, yes, but it's Snapchat, TikTok, etc. But I suppose apart from the social media mechanisms, which we are exploring, and Essex Police do have a TikTok page now. That doesn't mean you're going to see officers dancing, I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen. But
no, you never know.
You never know. If Mr. Hurst asked me, I would have to do it. But
that's not
But I suppose, what other mechanisms maybe would you recommend if you're at university? Is there any that you could think of that would give a better outreach, really, for not just the PFCC's office, but also for Essex Police as well, around some of the work that we're doing?
I feel like it's obviously using social media, as you said, you have sound like you use Instagram, and that.
Do you want to give Maisie the mic again?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
I can hear you, that's right.
That's obviously what most young people use is Instagram. I think it's the way it's worded and really stressing the importance of showing up for stuff like this, because I do believe it all starts at a local level. I think people kind of fail to see the importance of it at a local level and see these big like national elections and national issues and think that it makes everything else in like local elections irrelevant. But I think even with local issues, I think it's so important to stress that. And maybe it's just the wording and being like, you can change the narrative of things you're complaining about, that's in your power. Like, stuff like this is open for everyone to come and speak to. So I think, I'm not sure, obviously you guys probably know more how to word it than me, but I think just stressing the importance that you said you go into schools a lot. I think maybe, I don't know if you mentioned these meetings when you're in schools, but I think like before people turn 18, they're a bit like, oh, who cares, like politics or police and issues like that. It's like, oh, it's none of my business, I don't have the power. But actually stressing that the power is in young people's hands, because it is obviously everyone's perspectives here is so important, but the young people are shaping the future, and if they don't feel like their opinion is valued in these settings, I think that's where the issues start. But maybe just stressing that their presence is valued, maybe.
Thank you.
Very good points.
Those are good points. We also use Nextdoor as well. We also post on Nextdoor everything that goes on, and we know people are looking at it because we can see how many people look at it on Nextdoor. But obviously, it just translates into what we've got today.
Yeah.
Sorry, this lady's there. We'll come to you next.
Tesla Webb, I'm a resident in Morley, but my background, I retired last year, was with the probation service, mostly actually in Hertfordshire, but I used to contribute as a senior leader in probation to Hertfordshire's police and crime plan, and probation and collaboration with the Youth Justice Service, Children's Services, Health used to feature a lot more, and they'd be at this meeting, some of the probation officers, social workers, because crime's complex, and it's a partnership, and the word partnership's used a lot, and partners, but everybody else seems completely invisible from what I've seen here. So I'm just interested, you touched on domestic abuse in your introduction, and said you were surprised that cognitive behaviour programs are having an impact. Research has been, probation has been doing that for decades, and the research and the evidence has been there. That's not something that surprises me. So it's just an observation that this looks a bit bland. So if you want to get more people along, recognise that crime in our communities is complex. It touches on everybody's life, whether you're a victim, perpetrator, employee in the criminal justice system. There's a lot of people have got a lot of stakes in it. It could be a lot more interesting.
Okay, we'll try and work out how to be more interesting. Just to to reassure you. Yes, yes. It was my own personal surprise, not institutional surprise, if you see what I mean. It's not something that I personally had much to do with before, and to see how those cognitive behavioural therapy programs were so successful, it was an eye-opener to me. It really was. We do work very closely with probation. We have a criminal justice board in the county. Probation are very well represented on that. They are reducing the offending board as well. We don't normally have them here in the BSCC hosted public meetings.
Think about involving.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Thank you. I'll talk to our probation leads about it and see if they can do it.
Sorry, can I just ask, you have said to people, can you hold that right to your...
All right, just like
I'm
that.
struggling to hear some of what's being said.
Okay.
So you have...
Am I not holding it close enough?
No, closer.
Closer. Okay,
Yes,
right.
there.
Thank you.
Once you're really close, then it resonates.
Okay.
Understood.
It's just the pickup on these. Yeah, there we go. So you have to hold it there. I'm perfect. It seems to hear that. I'm very pleased with that. I don't hear that much. Gentlemen.
Good evening, I'm Mark Reed. I'm a, not a karaoke singer, you'll be glad to know. I'm a borough councillor and very, very proud to be in Rogers Ward. We've worked together for far too many years now.
But not too many, mind you.
Well, yeah. 3 quick questions. Devolution is changing local government. Can you explain how it's going to be going forward? The role of PFCC, how that is going to develop going forward with devolution. Secondly, I'm going to ask, I know your job here is to listen to people and really do surveys and that sort of thing, but can you tell me what one thing in your heart is the next thing you want to deliver on? What is it? What was your innermost thought on something you like to do? And thirdly, and perhaps not that important, have you voted yet for Chesney Hawkes in Brick Brother? I did once introduce Roger at a committee, a big local dinner, as the Chesney Hawkes of the role, because at the time he was the only police and fire commissioner, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer luckily laughed.
Thanks, Mark. You know what I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't even know Chesney was in Big Brother. So
I texted you.
Yeah. I did. Yeah, so I'll have to follow up on that one separately. Sorry. In terms of the devolution programme and local government reorganisation, yes, it affects the role of the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. So PFCC is an example of devolution already in action. You know, the powers over policing and fire and rescue were devolved from central government to my role. But the current government's view is that when we get a mayor, provided that the area is the same area as that for policing, for fire and rescue, here in Essex it is, then the role of the PFCC will be taken on by the mayor. The timing of that is unclear. I'm sure it will become clear over the next year or so. So the understanding is that a mayoral strategic authority will be created, which will be a collaboration between Essex County Council, Southend and Thurrock, sometime in early 2026. There will be a mayoral election in May 2026, and from that point there will be a mayor. Whether the mayor takes on the role of the PFCC on day one, which has been the case in quite a lot of areas, so West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, Greater Manchester, that's been the model that's happened there. Or whether it is at the end of the PFCC's term, so that would be 2028. I was re-elected last year. It's a 4-year term, so that takes us to May 2028. That will be clarified either in the statutory instrument which creates the mayoral authority, or subsequent to the mayor's election by an exchange of letters between the mayor and the Secretary of State. So either which way, I won't get to stand for election as PFCC again. There won't be any more elections for a PFCC. It will, before 2028, become a mayoral model. I think there's upside to that in terms of closer cooperation across the county, better collaboration with other public services, probation perhaps being one, but certainly social care is somewhere where you'd see potential for that, bringing various agencies more closely together. On the flip side, I think there's a little bit of a risk. I mean, I've sort of fought 3 elections on the back of policing and fire and rescue priorities, made it very clear to the public what it was that we wanted to deliver. That has been a very powerful electoral mandate and has meant that we've had these things, a police and crime plan, and if I may, Mark, a fire and rescue plan, which have been extremely useful tools talking to central government. Where we've been able to say, this is what we want to do, this is going to be in line with these are your priorities as central government, this is what we need to do it, please give us the money. And certainly, the police and crime plan we had in 2019, which was the first one that I produced, was very useful indeed in waving it under Mr Johnson's nose when he was standing to be leader of the Conservative Party before he was PM. And he actually committed, not just on the back of my waving paper at him, but it was a charge I led to commit to 20,000 extra police officers across the country. So it has been a really amazing role to have, and I'm really pleased to have it and to continue on with it. And I want to continue making a difference to your lives and the lives of the residents of Essex and helping these guys succeed in what they do for as long as I can. That probably is enough on Devo. In terms of what thing would I like to deliver on in that period, so I've talked about a lot of the things that we have done, and I think we have some great 10-year programs that we are now in year 6 or 7 of. The thing that I think I'd like to change most, that we haven't really got to grips with right now, is road safety. And we've had some really interesting discussions with highways, Essex Highways, South End Thurrock, National Highways, with other partner agencies about how we can use models that have worked elsewhere to get ahead of what's happening on our roads. So, in knife and drug crime, we learnt from the health service about how to deal with epidemic-style activity. How is this stuff spreading, and how do you get ahead of it, and how do you prevent it? And it's really worked. I'd like to do the same sort of thing, looking for a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary intervention. What do we need to do to reach out to everybody to get them to understand more about road safety and doing better? What do we have to do to target those people who are likely to be bad drivers, potentially commit road crime, possibly kill people, in the way that we have with those getting involved in drug crime? And how do we prevent that? And how do we then actually pick up on those who are really hard to reach, which can be people who are already members of drug gangs in the knife and drug crime area. But in the road crime area, it is fascinating talking to the experts that there are people who actually enjoy the risk, that they are out there and they do not care about the law. They are using either a super fast car or a super fast bike to do things which are a real thrill for them. And they don't want to know the police. They'll drive on false number plates. They'll make sure that they're not recognisable behind the wheel or on the bike. How do we get to them and change their behaviours? And so that's perhaps a bit of a longer answer than you wanted, Mark, but for me, that is the one thing that we really have to crack, because it is actually the biggest source of harm. It is disrupting more families and ruining more lives in this county now than all other crime put together.
Hello, my name is Alan Marsh and I live in a relatively rural area. So I'd like to ask you about rural crime. looking at your booklet, you've got more local, visible and accessible policing. I was going to ask you if you would consider instituting uniformed officer patrols in the countryside. It's something that used to happen and it used to be quite effective. I must say that every time I report hair coursing or illegal incursions or whatever, I've had a brilliant response from either 999 or 101. 101? Yeah. But over the years, we used to have 2 Essex police signs on one of the bridle paths near my house. One's disappeared and one is just obliterated by vegetation. It doesn't look good, it doesn't give a good message, because it shows that somewhere there's some neglect. The prevention that's made by having a visible patrol is so much better than having to try and report a crime in progress or trying to report something that has happened. And I would just ask you politely, please consider instituting some just uniform patrols. I know it's expensive for you, I know it's difficult, but hopefully it will prevent some of the rural crime which we suffer from, drug taking or drug abuse, which usually leads to fly tipping. Vehicles on bridle paths is quite a serious danger now because of the use by so many parents with children. So I would ask, please consider it. Thank you.
Thank you as well. There's some valid points in there, but I suppose some reassurance. By the way, if this comes away from my mouth and you can't hear me, just put your hand up. I'm going to stand up and I'm emceeing. So you do have and will have a dedicated officer, or in some cases officers that are from the neighbourhood policing team that are in control of what we call a ward. So the district is broken up into multiple wards, and that includes obviously all of our rural beats. Now, this is a very common question, and it's not unique to the rural community of having visible and accessible policing. So do we need more visible and accessible policing? Yes. In fact, whenever we go to community forums and we speak to people, one of the number one concerns that is still raised, they want to see more police. The counter to that is, I suppose when we're looking at patrols, if we're talking about like a bobby on the beat, walking on foot, engaging down a town as where it might be. If we had enough cops on the neighbourhood policing team and we didn't have priorities in the area to focus on, then of course it would work. But you have to understand that crime has changed very much so in the 20 years that I've been serving as a police officer. And I started as a beat officer, walking my beat, I very much did. What we now have is criminals do not commit crime on foot, they are transient. Criminals will use e-scooters, electric bikes, motor vehicles, stolen or otherwise. We're talking about, for example, number plates being altered. Officers not only need to be able to pursue and deal with those individuals, but they also then need to be able to respond to emergencies to ensure that people are kept safe. So foot patrol, although it's really good for engagement, we need to make sure the officers are equipped to respond and deal with crime as it happens. As far as engagement with the communities, I completely agree with your sentiment that the preventative is better than a reaction to the problem. And as a result of that, yes, visible patrols can be effective, but it is not the cure at all, because we can't be in the right place at the right time every time. If policing was that lucky and we could have the crystal ball, then that would be amazing. But we also do need to think about problem solving, which is what your neighbourhood policing team will do. So just using rural crime as an example, and I know at the moment there's been, it's an increase which is, although not, certainly we're still what we call in the green, we're okay. We're starting to see in some areas, we're starting to see more, agricultural thefts, or should we say, trespassing in areas that shouldn't be. And you've mentioned hair coursing as one, that's something that's come onto my radar, and I'm glad you're getting the response there, which is good to hear. We trialled, for example, a pilot of where we saw in a different district an increase in agricultural plant theft that was taking place. And it can really affect the farming community. And we trialled what's called a selected DNA, where we put signs up on each property, and we gave out marking kits and tools to our farmers to mark their equipment. And just in the 12-month pilot that took place, we saw around about an 80% reduction in those types of crimes. It's initiatives like that that we will use and continue to use if we see issues as such that in Brentwood. We also will, and I'll make sure, and again, if I'm open to challenge, but every area should have a community forum. If we're invited into the area and we go and we want to say, for example, if we have a Let's Talk event, if there's, wherever it might be, let's just say in Hutton, there hasn't been one for quite some time, we will advertise that, and I'm open to challenge if you was to write into me or write into my team, or use the contact us via 101 and say there hadn't been an engagement event in my area, we want to be able to talk to cops about the problem. If it's about coming along, meeting your local officer, meeting the neighbourhood policing team sergeant, telling them about your issues, which leads to the final aspect of please, 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 and really encourage through, if you've got like a local community forum or a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group where you might talk to one another. I know I do on my estate. If something's not right or things are happening, please report it. If it's not an emergency, it's 101. You can do it online whilst having a cup of tea. And some people will say, what's the point? The police aren't going to come out to this. The more information we get, that lands on my team's desk, and that allows us to create a picture of where those patrols need to take place. So if you don't report the matters, we're going to go to where the calls are coming in. So please support us by calling us, and we will come out and we will patrol. And my promise is where we can be visible in those areas where crime and antisocial behaviour is happening, we will.
Can I just say, yes, thanks very much. A uniformed car will be enough because the public are using vehicles on the bridleways. There's no problem with the police doing so. Once every now and again, it creates such an impression.
I've had it this, at the close of the meeting, don't go. I'll come and find you. I'm going to pass my details on and I'll come up with a couple of ideas and see what we can do. All right?
Certainly, so just a few questions coming through now. This one was just to yourself, had to go the long way around there.
Thank you. Hello, my name's Marie Alding and I'm just a woman that shares quite a lot of Roger's posts and the fire services. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Brentwood Police because I do follow as many police Facebook pages as much as possible, and I think it's important for us as a community in Essex to not just follow our local policing but to follow other polices and fire services around England anyway. But I'd like to say thank you because I think Brentwood Police actually out of all of the police in Essex have probably got the best posts from what I've gathered. So there's a compliment there. I love the fact that you initiated self-defence classes for women. I think that's really key. I'd love for other boroughs to do that too. I'd like to make a note for you guys to know that I do know Brentwood Council have got a white ribbon team apparently, so I hope everybody knows, as this is a webcast recording, that if you are suffering domestic abuse you can reach out to your council as well as your police. They're a really lovely team. They go on the bus out here quite a lot. I've seen them in Rayleigh. And also to let everybody know, if not the fire services, as far as I know, this has changed, we've got a purple J9 heart, which I appreciate very much so. So at a time of need, you've also got your fire services there as well. I'd just like to say it's amazing. I think you brought up a really good thing about how to communicate with our younger generation. And sometimes I do often think we need to have some sort of community address book, and that would include sports clubs, community groups. You know, you've got community information boards here. Perhaps the fire service could have new community boards outside as well, because there's a lot of posters that I've been pushing around for Safe Word Essex. And I've gone past fire stations, I've kind of gone, oh, it's not even in the window. So it would make sense to have a quick fix of a community notice board, because where some people don't want to go towards the police station, they can always go towards the fire stations as well. And that, anyone else at fire, I'm sorry. So it is what it is. Libraries and everything like that. I'd just like to touch on safer roads, because that's really important to me as well. Because I've got to understand that we've got a lot of newcomers into our areas that don't drive on the same type of roads.
I've had to, for instance, move into Southend for a brief time, and I have not got a clue in Southend, and I would classify touch with myself as a confident driver. I love seeing big slow signs on roads. I love going past Brentwood School outside and seeing all of the different colour circles. It just slows everybody down a bit. I think everybody's got so much going on in life. We're all too rushing around, and we need to just slow down a bit. And then the other thing I'd really like to touch on is I want to guide, hopefully, everybody on this, because I've just got this feeling, and I've lived in London, I've lived quite a lot of places and worked in different areas. But when devolution comes to Essex, we definitely need to value difference, because we need to understand each other's cultures, and we need to understand that actually our workforce in the Essex Police is a predominantly white workforce, and we need to see different colours, races and religions. If not, we're actually going to be penalising the same old. And I'm just going to leave them by saying I'll never stop giving out these posters, and I'll put them on quite a lot of garage doors, because it's got to the point in Basildon now. We don't have, I think I've seen one white officer, and that's just not okay when we're dealing with different communities when it comes to races and religions. We need a diverse community, and if you haven't got any money to pay people, then sign up to volunteers. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. And I think just picking up on that last point.
Paid lunch breaks for the women, please, Dr. Hurst. 36 minutes unpaid is not okay.
Right, that's a new one on me. I'll take a note of that as well. But thank you very much for what you do. I know you do a lot of helping and posting and promoting and lifting, and it's really helpful stuff. On the valuing difference, we do try very hard to reach out to all areas of our communities in terms of recruitment. We have had the opportunity to recruit a lot in the last few years, and I'm really pleased that certainly in terms of gender balance, it's made a huge difference to Essex Police. It's also made a big difference in terms of the other protected strands, including ethnic heritage. But I think it's fair to say that we've had much more success in recruiting from South Asian ethnic heritage than we have from Afro-Caribbean ethnic heritage. It's the way it's been, I think. We need to continue to do that because, as you say, there is a really important aspect of legitimacy. So when people are turning up in a community, people need to recognise that it is people that they can see, understand their community turning up to the police. So it needs to be across the spread. There's no quota, there's no number, but I think we need to be accessible to everybody. We need to be making sure that we do recruit from the people who are going to be good police officers from every area of our community. Is that, you want to add anything to that?
I'll add, thank you for your feedback on the social media feed. My officer in charge of that works very, very hard, and I'd concur that, very happy to put out some feedback from you, those really appreciated. And I suppose, just to carry on with that sentiment, we do work very hard to try to ensure that we have a police force representative of the community that we serve. And we've got an amazing team that work in recruitment, are working really hard, but it comes down to, as much as there is, of course, there's the police race action plan, and we're ensuring that we're following and abiding by, obviously, rules and regulations. It simply comes down to there are some barriers culturally with some communities that through policing it is not an attractive career path. So the question that we ask ourselves, and this is not just a question for Essex Police, this is all folks who we ask, well, why is that? And what can we do? And I think it goes right back to when we're talking about that engagement piece. Engagement into the youth demographic, into schools, into other communities, so we can attract the most talented individuals to come and do what is, in my opinion, still the greatest job in the world. It really is. It's not for everyone.
It's not a fight here.
We need it. We won't, that's fine. But it is a job like no other, but we need to attract the right people to do it. And it takes a certain types of people that have a passion for ultimately helping people. That's what we all signed up to do.
It's got to come down to, it has to be divided into cultures as well, because you might not want to work for the police force, but who would want to work for fire service? And it's the same, it's actually
Yeah, sorry, I'm not going to answer directly to what he just said there. He sort of knocked me off kilter then. But I'll come back to the previous points that you raised. One you said about that obviously we're supporting the White Ribbon campaign. We've actually been accredited by White Ribbon UK with the work that we've been doing with them, so we're very proud of that. With regards that you said about the safety messages, what we've done is delayed them being communicated so that we work in line with our new CRMP that's been released. We're in process of all our shutter doors and all our stations to be rewrapped, promoting those safety messages.
Certainly from a council perspective, we have been very strong on violence against women and girls and White Ribbon. We've very much focused that, believe it or not, internally, first of all, in the first years, to get staff to understand what the issues are. Certainly, I did work at this authority, so it was really good to come in and see what progress had been made and how challenging it was for some men to understand what the issue was. So it's been a real good culture change, and that's one of the things that we want to continue doing throughout the council, and certainly now dealing with things like Prevent, if having those difficult conversations of how we help support our community through what could be challenging things and understanding different cultures. So we're working really hard to get that integration across all departments.
We've got some.
Councillor Kenneth, something's got 4 more to come.
We've got a few questions coming here, so we've got them lined up. People are lining up. Thank you for your patience, everybody. We'll get around to everyone.
Hello, my name is Diane Matthews. I live in Brentwood. I was recently asked by somebody, not a teacher, but somebody working at St Martin's School, if I knew of anybody that would take students for work experience, and I was wondering if that's something that you do.
So in my own office, which is quite small, we normally have one.
I did mean with regards to the police, maybe in offices and with the fire brigade.
So maybe I can ask. Do you want to go first, Mark? Do we do work experience?
Within reason, we do work experience. Obviously, because of the nature of the job, we have to be very careful about what we expose people to. But we do offer them sort of a tour, if you like, to go to our headquarters, visit a couple of stations. What we do actively engage with the younger community is fire break. Fire break's a big thing that we promote. That gives them a week of actually doing the practicalities with the job, sort of edges them towards, do they consider it as being a future career for them? And also, like what you mentioned earlier, a couple of people mentioned earlier, it entertains them, gives them something else to focus on. They even get homework for that week as well. So that's probably just put them off, hasn't it?
Just Paul, another word about
It's certainly something since I've been here, I've not seen any work experience. What I have seen is a lot of apprentices, so that's what is focused on in terms of trying to give careers to people in local government, because my God, we need people to come into local government. But certainly that's something I will take back and talk to our human resources department about, of reintroducing work experience, because I know that happened a lot in previous years, but the focus has been around apprentices.
A similar answer to my colleague from the fire service. By virtue of what we do, work experience would be a challenge if we was to look at frontline operational policing for a young lad or lady coming through secondary school. There are some programmes that run centrally from some of our headquarters departments, to the best of my knowledge, that certainly existed previously. It's challenging because a lot of what we do, even in an office space, can have some sensitive information that's passed, and vetting individuals, particularly if we're looking at the youth demographic, can be a challenge. So it's yes, something we do, but it's not as straightforward as going to work in WH Smith's or Costa, as an example. So, but yeah, that's about the best I can do, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
If I may just add in there is the police cadets programme, which is...
and fire cadets.
Sorry?
Don't forget the fire cadets.
We forgot that, sorry.
That's an excellent programme, and the PFCC liaises with them very regularly, and we use them. Sorry, thank you for being patient, sir.
Thank you. My name is Councillor Ridley. I'm the chair of the Community Safety Partnership here in Brentwood, and for my sins I also sit on the Essex Police Fire and Crime panel with the Commissioner. My query is about rural crime again, and whether you feel that you need to make greater investment into dedicated rural crime teams, for example specialists embedded in the police force that are dedicated to picking up on rural crimes and enabling people within the community to report these crimes too. Now, there are some very real costs to this. NFU Mutual estimated that the cost of rural crime to families and businesses increased to a staggering 52.8 million in 2023, which was up nearly 22% since 2020. So not only is it big crime, it's also big business. So my question to you is, how are you going to enable properly resourced, dedicated rural police crime teams embedded in the force to enable us to crack down on it?
So I think the Chief Inspector has some details in front of him about exactly what we have at the moment, but I think it's worth saying, Terry will tell us, we set up a specifically rural engagement team 8 years ago now, I think it was, and we doubled it in size after a couple of years because it was a really important resource. And we have, over that time, had a big impact on some of the specifically rural crimes, so things like unlawful incursions. We lobbied central government along with others and got the changes to the law which came in, which increased police powers around intervening to stop unlawful incursions or deal with them at a lower level of significance. And that's been really powerful. I think actually the change in the law was more effective than many thought it was going to be. But also we put more resource into that. So I think we've both halved the number and the time span of unlawful incursions, and that of course effectively means it's a quarter of the half. Similarly, hair coursing, there's been a big impact, and we have had an impact as well on equipment theft, as you were saying, through some very good prevention measures. But there's definitely more to do, and I think what we learned last year was we kind of had a big change and then it flattered, and the question is, what do we do next to have a bigger impact? Flight tipping has been a big issue as well across the county, but particularly here locally. Maybe Paul will want to say something about the initiatives that we're taking there. But yes, we had a rural summit. When was it? Then was it December?
Yes, it was December. It was about 3 weeks before Christmas.
Yeah. Where we actually sat down and said, so what do we actually need to do next to move to the next level in terms of preventing rural crime? But Chief Inspector, you have
Yeah, sure. Evening, Councillor. So, look, to follow on from that, the Rural Engagement Team, I believe they are 2 sergeants, 8 PCs, split over 2 teams. They do work from headquarters, but they were set up in recognition of the fact that we need to have a dedicated team focused on rural crime. Would I like to have a dedicated team, of course, for a district? Of course we would, but we need to make sure we've got those resources in the right place to focus on the priorities. The Rural Engagement Team really work alongside the neighbourhood policing team. So we've mentioned already about the neighbourhood policing team that you have, and each of the rural areas will have not only that team to respond to deal with if there was a problem developing, such as a series of break-ins developing over in our rural communities. The neighbourhood policing team will be responsible for setting up a targeting operation. Could be a covert or overt capacity to try and deal with that, but they would be supported by the Rural Engagement Team that would pick up some of the large work there that, of course, Mr Hurst already mentioned around unauthorised encampments, hair coursing. They support us and the council with our flight tipping initiatives as well, and will continue to do so, no doubt, as we move into 2025. They're also, and obviously we've mentioned road safety a fair amount as well, and we'll obviously have our road policing teams, but the Rural Engagement Team will also run proactive operations focused very specifically on our rural roads and ensuring that they're kept safe, as well as assisting the engagement work. So long may it continue, and we'll very much the neighbourhood policing team model as it rolls into, and we look at increasing the size of those teams. We want to have more officers to be more visible where we can.
and perhaps just a good moment to mention, I did in my preamble, we will be adding 74 people this year to our policing teams in response to what the government did in response to our request for more money. Paul, do you want to just talk a bit about fly tipping?
Yeah, I never realised fly tipping could be so complicated till I came to Brentwood, although I've dealt with it for many years. Brentwood is uniquely placed for fly tipping, A12, M25, A127. It is a mixture of an avenue for multiple access to very pretty rural areas. Our fly tipping is around about 80% what I would call commercial, 20% domestic. Everywhere else in the county is pretty much exactly the opposite to that. So we are very, very different. However, Epping are very similar, and we know that quite a lot of the stuff is coming in from Havering. So with Roger, we've pulled together a task and finish group where we have bringing all the partners this is affecting, so Havering Council, Havering Police, so that's Met Police, Essex Police, PFCC, us, Epping Council, to pull together an action plan that we are going to work together, which will involve modern technology, understanding what crimes are going on. It was very interesting when we met with the Met of what they're doing to prevent crime in their area, theft of cars. They also know there's a lot of fly tipping going on, and we were talking around how we could use modern systems and detection to be able to understand when a crime might be about to occur. I really love trying to find the person that dropped an awful amount of waste in a rural road, which could cause an accident. And we know that one was caused quite recently, just after I started, with somebody cycling into it, which has given life-changing, very much life-changing injuries. So how do we stop that happening? And that's to catch them doing it, not trying to find out if some poor person has thought they've given their waste to somebody that should dispose of waste properly, and then suddenly find out that it wasn't when we're finding them and not really the perpetrator of the fly tipper. So that's what we're trying to achieve, and that's what partnership brings together. So I thank Roger for that, because that was pulling those people together, and Roger's got a good voice to be able to get Havering in the room, which was really good. And they've got lots of ideas, as have we, as have Epping, to try and stop that happening. And it will have effects on other crimes, but it's just happening with fly tipping. So I think we've got quite an exciting year on what we might be able to do with modern technology and working in partnership. And it may certainly start picking up before a crime's happening, before you know it might be happening. So I'm looking forward to trying to prevent as much as we can by working in that partnership.
Okay, thank you for your patience, sir. Well, just a few more questions.
Be pleased. There's only two now, Roger.
All right, okay.
You've gone down. You've done fly tipping, you've done rural crime. That's good. First question. You'll be delighted to see the fire service. Been waiting all night, yeah? I've got a couple of high-rise blocks in my ward, and there is still concern from residents regarding what happened at Grenville, yeah? Because, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the policy at Grenville was people should stay put in their flats, yeah? And subsequently, people have said if people had come out of their flats, some people might have survived, some might not. No one knows. Just unclear, is the policy of the Essex Fire Service still, if there's a fire in a high-rise block, to stay in your flat? Is that still the policy?
Yeah, thanks for your question. So I think if I had to clarify first, Grenfell's a high-rise. Officially, we don't have a high-rise in Essex, believe it or not. We have what they call mid-rise.
Oh.
They have to be open, but it's just for clarification. But even so, we still take on the actions that were raised through Grenfell, very much that we've taken on. So we've dedicated what we call a high-rise task team that will go around and look at all our risks. Predominantly what that is grading them. One of the main grades, the highest grade, would be anything that's got cladding. because that was, for anyone that wasn't aware, that was the main cause of what spread the Grenfell fire. It was through the hidden spread through the cladding material. So they've already been classified. Those that have been asked to remove have been removed, and we still promote that with a purpose-built, correctly built building, stay put, unless the risk assessment states otherwise. So if the risk assessment, the risk assessor says that they are a simultaneous activity, which they evacuate and stay put, or it might even be a phased evacuation. They are usually associated with systems, so alarm systems, and they might do a phased evacuation so we don't overload the stairwell. But our advice is, unless stated otherwise from us, is stay put.
Okay, thanks for that. The second question is to Terry. Terry, Brentwood, like a number of towns, has an issue with drugs. You know, there's no point in trying to hide it. There is an issue with drugs. We know it goes on. I have residents who say they've reported drug issues to the police, and I know you're probably in a difficult position on this, but it's what the policy is from the police in terms of reporting back to people, because one of the frustrations is we've told the police nothing happens. I'm sure you guys do stuff, you know, but they don't see it happen, and they're thinking, what's the point? You know, we said before. And I just wondered, is there a policy of reporting back over a period of time if people have bothered to pick up the phone and contact the police, particularly on drug issues? Because if you live with it day after day, and you know, we have people who see pickups in the high street on a regular basis, they report that, they obviously wonder, is anyone doing anything about it? So I don't think it's done for that.
Thank you. I suppose that a healthy challenge back, and this is speaking as the District Commander for Brentwood, no, I do not believe there is a drug issue in Brentwood. Do people use drugs in Brentwood? Yes. Are there drug dealers in Brentwood? Of course. You know, unfortunately, no matter where you go from here to the Cotswolds, there will be crime, and drugs, unfortunately, is one of them. I've worked up and down the Western LPA and the county for 20 years, and I would still say that Brentwood is a very safe place to live. You know, overall, if we look at the statistics as well, that would back that up. If we're talking about the mechanisms of what we do, the neighbourhood policing team here actively probably carry out, I would say, about one drugs warrant a month, and that's just the neighbourhood policing team. That's not including our specialist departments, that's not talking about the NCO, that's not talking about any other department that may well also look at, say, organised crime groups or county lines, for example. I mean, only in March there was a coordinated activity that took place across Essex, which was publicised in the press. There's no issue into talking about, but there were 20 coordinated strikes, including addressing Brentwood, which resulted in 18 arrests and £5,000 in cash seizure and a significant amount of Class A being taken off of the streets of Brentwood. How do we put that into effect? And you are right, it comes down to the information that's passed to us. There are no set mechanisms in regards to individuals calling us and saying, this is what's going on at number 1 Main Road, Joe Bloggs is selling drugs. And there are a number of reasons for this. But first and foremost, the vast majority of people that pass intelligence to us, particularly around drugs and drug dealing, the main reason why people won't come forward is usually fear of reprisals, fear of their name being known or their address. This is sometimes neighbours reporting on neighbours, or family members even reporting on family members, and sometimes that intelligence is viable, it leads to arrests, it leads to convictions. There would be issues in us, should we say, one, not knowing their details because they can report anonymously, but where we do have information, we also have to understand that in this country still, rightfully so, you are innocent until proven guilty by the Crown ultimately, and when a court deems that might be the case, then we publicise details. So cases can take a very long time to get back to court, and at that point we have the mechanism to then inform individuals of what's going on. However, what I would implore and encourage individuals to do is reporting these concerns. Of course, 101, speaking to mechanisms like this, coming to speaking to me tonight even, you could do after if you wanted to speak in confidence. But anyone can report information to us anonymously via Crime Stoppers, that could be done. Alternatively, they can report it to Essex Police online as well. But without that information and the support from the public, we won't be able to continue the excellent work that's going on around ensuring that drug dealers cannot operate without fear of being arrested by Essex Police. And that's very much my mission, is that despite the statistics showing that it's not a concern, and it's certainly on the decline for us. It's an area of focus and will continue to be so, because that's where I want to keep it, and that's where it should remain.
Okay.
And just to say, so Crime Stoppers 0800 555 111, if anyone wants to take that number down, 0800 555 111. And just maybe picking up on your point about feedback, so that's absolutely where we are. I have challenged the Chief Constable and said we need to get better, particularly at feedback to victims. We need to be keeping them more closely informed. It is a challenge because of the legal restrictions around say court proceedings in processes, etc. But there must be ways we can do more than we do at the moment. I agree with you.
Can I just add a bit more?
Oh yes, go on, sorry.
I think we've just got...
Mark just wants to... Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to... My brain was ticking along, it's been a long day, so sorry, it takes a little while to wind up. I just wanted to give you a little bit more context to the question you asked me. In addition to what I already said, is just to give some assurance to the people that raised concerns. We also conducted fire safety audits on all our low and medium rise risks in the whole of Essex. All our fire crews have exercised every single one of those as well. So we've done a tabletop and a live to all those risks to ensure that we, you know, if we were required, that we can get everyone out safely. We've instigated fire survival guidance, which is to ensure that we clear floor by floor and we give safety advice to those people that are in their compartments. And also it's about the most important thing for us is clarifying whether it's a fire in a building or the building is actually on fire. Because Grenfell, the building was on fire, and it's about clarifying that really early. So hopefully that gives a bit more context to that.
Thanks, Mark. How are we doing for questions?
We're obviously over our time, but we've just got time for one last quick question from the lady at the end here.
I'll be quick, really, and it's a positive one. I reported fly tipping last week because there was a mattress dumped on Hartswood Road, and it was removed within 48 hours. And I do think, as a community, we should be taking responsibility. As you said, Brentwood's a safe town, but it's how we keep it, really. And there's two observations. We stopped down on Wiggly Bush Lane coming out to London Road. There's signs attached to the street furniture there on how to order your drugs online. I've wheeled my grandson through King George's playing field, and you see the cannabis stickers stuck on some of the furniture. I'll peel them off if I can. But there's something about getting those things removed, and we all have a responsibility as a community to do that. And I think the same goes with graffiti. Think about the probation service and community payback and get that removed as well, because the cleaner a community looks, the less likely it's to be dumped on and to be vandalised.
I absolutely agree with you, though. I think you're so right about the fact that if it looks as though people care, it makes a difference. Yeah, exactly that. And then do you want to come back at all on
the reality is it will come down to resources.
We all have a part to play.
I know we all have a part to play, and it's about that communication of what those stickers mean. Then people might be more keen to take those off for us. If we can start curing fly tipping, then we can release resources to do a lot more. But it's dragging quite a lot of the council's resources to deal with fly tipping and trying to clear those as quickly as possible. We just know that when we clear some, by the time we've got back to the yard, there's another load there, so we're only clearing out ready for the next load. So, but we will be sorting that. But yeah, take your point. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everybody, for attending tonight. Please do take a police and crime plan and a fire and rescue plan with you, and do sign up to the PFCC newsletter on the PFCC website for all information about PFCC activities. And of course, the Brentwood edition of Dispatch is a wonderful source of information about what Essex Police are up to. So I want to say thank you very much for everybody coming along tonight.
Thank you. And just to say, Dispatch, you sign up to it by going onto the Essex Police website and following the link, and you can sign up and get it regularly. Is there a link on the table? Thank you, Paul. That's really good. Can I just add my thanks to everyone for coming? Really appreciate it. These meetings are really valuable to us. Hopefully you've had some value from it as well. we appreciate you giving me your evening. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.